Oysters are a sure sign of high-end decadence, but look back 200 years and they were handed out as free bar snacks. So what made them the luxury food that they are today? Oysters have been around for a while. Estimates put the shellfish around 300 million years old at least, and humans have been enjoying them for centuries. Oyster cultivation was invented by Sergius Arata, a Roman engineer also often credited for the invention of underfloor heating, and since his invention, oyster farming has become big business. While you may be seeing oysters on the menu more these days, their popularity now is nothing compared to just 200 years ago. Oyster sales boomed from the early 19th century onwards, and the shellfish were sold as street food across London, Paris, and New York as they remained a cheap and accessible snack to many. In 1860, the small British seaside town of Whitstable alone was sending 50 million tons of oysters to London each year, and by 1900, New York was eating 1 million oysters every day. But as their popularity grew, so did the problems. Industrialization and dredging of the waters in England led to overfishing, and as more people moved to the coast, more and more sewage ended up dumped in oyster-growing waters. Soon there were outbreaks of typhoid and other diseases, and many oyster beds had to be closed. Hard winters and new diseases killed off many of the remaining native oysters and gave the shellfish a bad reputation that lasted for years to come. There's something else that kept the price of oysters down around the turn of the century: child labor. In the early 20th century, American photographer Lewis Hine captured photographs of many of the children working in the oyster industry, even photographing 4-year-old Mary, who had apparently shucked 2 pots of oysters each day. Things had to change though. We soon realized the importance of clean water in the oyster growing process and outlawed child labor. Making oysters environmentally safe and ethical to grow came at a cost, as the shellfish take a lot of work to produce. And now, when oysters are raised, the environment they're grown in is one of the main considerations. Each oyster takes 2 to 3 years to mature, and they start out microscopically small. The tiny shellfish are grown in hatcheries. When they're large enough, they're transplanted to their final growing place. Well, the oysters will be get out from hatchery when they're about thumbnail size. They grow in the baskets for approximately 2 to 3 years and then sent to the depuration center for depurating and then for packing for dispatch. At any farm, every oyster is depurated, a process that cleans the oysters and removes any dangerous bacteria. Every single oyster must be checked by hand. Making sure that each oyster is shipped live is paramount. Believe it or not, some farms sell roughly about 35,000 oysters every week, and every single oyster is individually checked. Oysters may only have a 9-day shelf life, so it must be consumed quickly. Like the video, please subscribe to more interesting videos.